Welcome back, Mkaya, and my name is not Gugu, and I mean that voice should have showed you already. My name is Kasi Tolia, sitting in for Gugu for one last time this evening, as Gugu has been standing in for the breakfast show during this hectic Easter period that we've been through. So obviously today we are going to move on to the question of education, which is a primary passion of mine. And right now in studio, we are joined by the Dean and Director of Henley Business School, Mr. John Foster-Pedley. Good evening, John.
Evening, Kaya.
So, I believe that Henley Africa has launched a new African Hero Scholarship program in celebration of a new era for South Africa. So the president speaks of a new dawn, and Henley seems to be on board.
Well, we are definitely on board. I mean, the idea of the new African heroes is exciting for us. I mean, we've had so many past heroes, but who are the new heroes? Who stands up for that? Who do we identify? And what we want to do at Henley is to give scholarships for the MBA, some of them are full scholarships worth R250,000 each, to people who've demonstrated a real commitment to building the nation with a view to the future, with a view to change, with a view to a sort of productive, transnational, constructive idea of what South Africa can become. And those are the people who may not have the money to do this sort of study up to now that we want to support and give the opportunity to do a great international MBA.
I suppose, of course, the question of higher education in South Africa has been topical for a few reasons. And, you know, when I think of Henley, and I always associate them with the MBA and just the business school, what exactly is it that you guys offer?
We have a whole range of programs. I mean, we have the MBA, which is, we also have a specialty for the creative sector. So we've had quite a few people from the creative sector, including radio, come on that sort of MBA, and musicians and comedians. We also have a postgraduate diploma, which is a program that, if it's an honors level program, it allows you to qualify for an MBA if you haven't got an honors level already. That's a level 8. And we also have a level 5 and a level 6 program, so a higher certificate, an advanced certificate. We're working on a level 7, which is a diploma. On top of that, we have a whole range of corporate programs and customized programs, including deep immersions. We call that Henley Fire, full immersion reality education. And we have Henley Ice, which is innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship, which are focuses of ours. And we do immersions internationally and locally. And our aim is, we have a motto, which is we build the people who build the businesses that build Africa.
And you know, when you speak of MBA, I'm always reminded that a couple of years ago, the then Minister of Higher Education, Blades Mande, came up with this directive that, of course, the way people were getting access into MBA programs in South Africa was something he was uncomfortable with, and that he wanted to restructure that, in that no one could gain direct access into an MBA program unless they had done a 4-year, I think, honors degree until then, or if not, then they'd have to do a postgraduate diploma. And this was supposed to begin in 2018. Of course, he's no longer the Minister of Higher Education. So what is the status of that? That
came into pass. That was put forward by the Department of Higher Education and Training. There's always an entry criterion for the MBA, and it's normally at least a degree and 3 years experience. So it was raised to be higher than the international standard. So here in South Africa, you need a postgraduate diploma or an honors degree plus 3 years experience in management, although 10% of people who don't have those qualifications can enter through recognition of prior learning. And I personally would love to see that expanded, because we have so many people who are really intelligent, who didn't have access to great education, but throughout their life have built the capabilities that we can give access to really good development that allows them to build better businesses, and it's those better businesses are going to build a better South Africa.
Yeah, I'm always curious when we talk about recognition of prior learning, because of course it's always going to be a very subjective process. But do you think that in the country we've sort of developed our understanding of what skills people need to have before they could sort of, you know, be absorbed into an education space? So if you're going to say RPL, we have to be able to say, well, never mind what your background is, these are the skills you need to exhibit in order for us to say that actually you have learned something that will give you the right skills to thrive.
Yeah, Kai, I'm totally on your side on that. I mean, the fact is that just because you haven't been through an education process doesn't mean you haven't developed an enormous range of skills. In fact, there's excellent examples of people who are either dyslexic, who built fantastic businesses, who have been entrepreneurs and skipped out of education and built great businesses. So what the RPL process does is yes, it's partly subjective, but with an objective kind of base. It looks at all the sort of acquired capabilities you've got, and you have to propose these, and a panel of people who are experienced will look at it and say, yeah, this represents really sound capability. And I have to say that I'm really against sort of elitist education. And while the MBA has this sort of view of it that's for an elite, that's nonsense to me. And if an MBA is any good, if it provides any value to people, if it helps you go and build your business better, start new businesses, then shouldn't everybody have access to it? Why should it be an elite thing? It's nonsense, and that's our dream, and that's what we'd like to make happen.
I suppose some would say that when you talk about elitism, it is not a conversation that happens in a vacuum. If you look at the fees for MBAs, for example, it sort of then tends to prioritize people who either have a corporate sponsor or have deep pockets themselves. So perhaps the elitism creeps in on that front.
Yeah, it's true that MBAs are reasonably expensive. You know, I like to say, you know, this is a parody of a used car salesman here, is that they're less than a second-hand Mercedes, and most people seem to be able to afford a decent car. And it's something that you invest in for yourself that pays back. The thing about an MBA, it's a long, involved process with a lot of assessment, with very highly skilled people training, especially with us. We're an international business school. We use international faculty. And in fact, the fees for the Henley MBA are reduced in South Africa to be on parity with Wits and Gibbs and USB. There's other great business schools. And they almost double if you were to do the same qualification and you taught by the same people, same assessments, and get the same degree, which is a UK and South African one. It would cost you nearly double if you did that in England and other places, because it's the same qualification around the world. We're an international business school. So that is something we've done to try and lower the cost as well as we can to meet the local parity. But learning's a pathway. You know, it's something you do throughout your life and push yourself forward onto. But you mustn't believe for a second that the MBA is the answer to everything. It's not. What the point of an MBA is, you can come and do an MBA and you can do it in a reasonably trivial manner if you like. You can just pass everything. Or you can throw yourself at it and risk, you know, not doing very well in some subjects which you're unfamiliar with, and you can push yourself to the limit. You can learn from everyone around you. You can make this your academy of life and get phenomenal value out of it. So a lot of it depends on what you bring to the situation.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's obviously quite important for us to remember that the MBA tends to sort of tap into broad skills rather than just one specific skill. But I think also, you know, over the past couple of years, there's always been this question of, you know, even the MBAs that are available in the market, how responsive are they to the South African circumstances, to the South African conditions, to even the African conditions? I think a lot of people talk about the case studies that even get used, and that primarily everybody just logs into the Harvard database, the McKinsey database, and perhaps the graduates that we get even in our MBA programs are not sort of, you know, ready to sort of make the difference overnight.
Well, that's a great argument. There's been a lot of talk about having an African MBA. I mean, I'm English. You can tell from my voice. Okay?
Yes, I can.
I've been here 35 years or so. But when I did an MBA, I did one in Britain. But I didn't want an English MBA. I didn't want a European MBA. I wanted an international MBA that was locally contextualized, short, the stuff I was doing. So the sort of MBA we do, it's an international MBA. It's taught in China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, around Europe, Malta, and many other places around the world where we have our extensive facilities. But it's adapted to the local conditions because it's very project-based, and all the assignments you do are adapted to your own organization. We have an Africa elective, which is an online elective that's quite progressive. And on top of that, we're producing a range of case studies. So we're responding to that requirement to have a deep contextualization. It's difficult because you want to have a program for Africa. And then you ask yourself, what is Africa? What's it going to be in the next 20, 30 years? What are you going to do in your career? Are you going to be staying in South Africa? Are you going to be an international, transnational capability? Are you going to be able to work around the world and be recognized for that? Or do you want to stay in this context? Africa does international trade. It's internationalizing rapidly. So our people must be the same. They must be able to be recognized for who they are and work in any organizations and countries around the world and be sought after for the talent we have, and not just for local talent. At the same time, we've got to focus on developing programs that help people build organizations in our fantastic context.
Yeah, one of the advantages of being in an MBA program, of course, is the ability to learn from your peers, and that's where the diversity question comes in. So how diverse do your class groups tend to be, or do you just simply say, no, this year we'll take all the accountants because then everybody will agree on everything, then we don't have to worry about anything else? How do you manage that process?
Have you ever been in a room of accountants agreeing on everything? It just doesn't happen. The problem with putting intelligent people together en masse is they don't always think intelligently together. So we've developed an MBA for the creative industries. When I joined about 7 years ago, we had about 30% Black Africans on our program. We had about 20% women. We're now 68% Black Africans on our program. We're about 42% women. We have the family-friendly MBA, which makes a big difference. And we have our stand for corporate activism and no more bribes, which are the hashtags we're pushing, because we want to take a position as a business school which is constructive and somewhat brave. So we try and attract people. We have musicians. We have, John Flismus, the comedian, is doing an MBA. Barry Van Sale, John Eclectic drummer is.
I think DJ Spoo was there.
DJ Spoo was there for a while, and then he's moved on to other things at the moment. I think he's a very busy man.
Yeah.
We have Loiso Bala, fantastic singer, and a range of other creatives. We've got people from radio and TV. Peter Ndoro's doing one. And so we have fantastic variety, and we deliberately do that so you're not stuck in that accountancy mold. That's such an antiquated view of an MBA. An MBA these days is something that should be dynamic and stimulating and relevant to the world we live in.
Yeah, you've titled you've named this scholarship the African Hero Scholarship, and I suppose at the beginning you sort of tapped into that. And I suppose one question that one would have to ask is, the African scholar. This is an idea that a lot of us have sort of said, well, what is the ideal African scholar? Question is it an expert on South African issues? Is it an expert on African issues? Or is it an expert on global issues who just happens to be African? What is an African scholar?
I think it's all of those things. I mean, when you choose what an African scholar is, for example, you need deep scholarship into African heritage and African culture and African community and African governance, which is so rich and deep and fantastic. You need that too. But you also need people who are African scholars who understand, who study and research into the role of Africa in the world, the role of trade in the world, role of human resources, what things we take from the way we work with people in the multicultural environment we sit in, and what lessons can we take from that. We need people who understand China and Japan and South America. So we need scholarship, and scholarship means rigor, application, but also a lot of imagination. What we want to do is build confident people who are going to be attracted around the world. I think we confuse education with intelligence a lot. Just because you have a lot of education doesn't mean you're blessed with a lot of intelligence. And just because you never had access to education doesn't mean you're not intelligent either. In fact, it's quite often the reverse. We have some fantastic people emerging we want to encourage with our Dean Scholarship, the Academic Scholarship, the African Hero Scholarship, the Johnny Clegg Scholarship, the Music and Creative Industry Scholarship, for our MBA and other programs. We really want to build a cadre of people who can be the leaders for this new emerging style of economy that we're going to make together for all our children.
There's the tension that always exists when people think MBAs are like, first it's quite expensive, and then I'm going to put myself through this rigorous selection process. So a lot of people actually just sit home and say, I'm not going to put myself through this. But I suppose historically, the well-established international MBAs talk about the GMATs and all of those things, where people just say, I don't have the time or the energy for this. How accessible is just the Henley MBA program for a person listening at home right now saying, I might have an interest in that?
It's really accessible. First, you go to our website and download an application form. We don't do GMATs. I personally feel that GMATs are not representative of people particularly. It assesses a narrow slice of a particular sort of intellect, sometimes very privileged. And I don't think it's a good correlation between what things we're trying to go and some of the things they assess. In fact, research shows that the GMAT, good though it is, it's a good indication of getting highly academic people in. But if you don't have a GMAT, and I've run programs at UCT and here without GMAT, you tend to get a range of people. And what you're looking for is an amount of growth in people, not even the top level. And we're looking for fast, high growth in people's abilities. So it's an extremely accessible. We have the family-friendly MBA. I have a horror of studying, the MBA as being a marriage breakup academy. We don't want that. I have a horror of it. Why should responsible educators design programs that destroy families and children? So we've created a program that brings the families together. We talk about resilient parenting. We try and make the passage human and engaging and collective, so that family as a unit can pass through this and benefit generally. And also that's the sort of leader we want to model in the world.
So how many scholarships are available under the African Hero Scholarship Program, and how does one apply?
Well, we've got about two scholarships to the MBA on the African Hero, one for the postgrad diploma. We've got a range of other scholarships you may be available to. So if you're going to apply, Kaya, so go onto our website, henleysa.ac.za, download the forms, contact us, and apply for a scholarship. And if you're the sort of person who's made a difference or is committed to making a difference, sort of person we all admire, and who's done more than just work for yourself or just to build a career for yourself, but has got a sense of community and the future, then you're absolutely the sort of person we respect and we would like to honor by providing a scholarship to.
Just for timing issues, do I have to apply and be accepted into the MBA program first and then do the scholarship, or can I do it?
You can apply to both, and so that if you apply to you have to the thing is, you need to move reasonably fast now. We've got about 3 or 4 weeks. So get the application form in with some references. Ask about the scholarship immediately. The application form, go to the UK. We're part of a global alumni network that's been ranked #1 in the world for potential network by The Economist. You become part of that. But then you apply. The application goes through the UK. In the meantime, we can be looking at the scholarship application. And should you be successful, and we don't let people apply who are unlikely to be successful, then you could very likely get a scholarship, and a full or half or less scholarship to allow you to study and complete this MBA or postgrad diploma. And I really hope that people listening do that, because we really want to make a difference.
All right. Okay, you heard that. If you want to apply for the African Hero Scholarship, log on to the Henley Business School website, henleysa.ac.za. And on that note, thank you very much, John Foster-Pedley, who's the Dean and Director of Henley Business School, telling us about the African